Are you in favour of this ruling by the High Court yesterday? I mean, do you have sort of knowledge of what's going on? Why do you object to these hotels and migrants?
Because they're unregistered. We don't know what type of person we've got there. And as you say, it can lead on to all sorts of different things. I thought we could wait and put them onto cruise ships.
Well, they tried that with the barge, didn't they?
Yeah, but that was a barge. I mean, these cruise ships, you can hold 5,000 to 7,000 people. You can have food, you've got entertainment, you've got menu on there. They're in a contained area, which is nice. You've got...
Are they allowed off the boat?
They can, at different ports. They can go into different areas. They don't have to be here all the time.
This is exactly what the barge did.
Yeah, but then that was, I don't know how many, that only held 300 to 400 people. You have a full crew on the cruise ships. And it's contained. They're not going to go off illegally work for takeaway agencies and stuff like that.
I've heard that suggestion before. I've no doubt we'll be reviewing this again, but certainly I know Tom's going to be speaking to the Home Office Minister about this to get the government point of view. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for us. Back tomorrow at 4. Hopefully, if you missed it in today's show, you can listen to Catch Up on the Global Player and the LBC app, which you can download for free from your App Store now at 10. It's Lewis Will, but now it's time for your Wednesday breakfast with Tom Swan.
Ian, thank you very much indeed. Yes, it's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of August.
That's roses, that's their call.
Vandalism and patriotism now roundabouts are sprayed with the Cross of St George's Council's take down flags attached to lampposts. Also,
Coming Rodney, this time next year we will be millionaires.
now they never leave the UK, but some 60% of British millionaires believe they could have a better life abroad should the Chancellor go easy on wealth taxes to keep them here. The government's asylum policy ripped up as the High Court forces the closure of an asylum hotel in Epping, opening the door to more councils to bring legal action. Ministers worry that there will now be more violence around hotels in order to bring about a decision to close them. Do you think that's likely?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From London's newsroom at 7 o'clock, the government is braced for more legal action over asylum hotels after a council in Essex secured a temporary High Court injunction. Epping Forest District Council argued public safety was being put at risk because of ongoing protest outside the Bell. It now has until September the 12th to stop housing migrants following weeks of disruption. Speaking after the ruling, the Conservative leader of Epping Council, Chris Whitbread, welcomed the decision.
They need to address the issue at the borders, obviously, and obviously our country's always been a fair country. We've always welcomed legitimate asylum seekers, but this is wrong. What's going on is currently wrong, and the government needs to get over it.
The Home Office has stressed the injunction was one on planning laws, not public order issues. Reform UK says all 12 of its local authorities are now considering legal action. NATO leaders will hold a virtual summit later to discuss security arrangements for Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. President Trump has said his Russian and Ukrainian counterparts are still preparing to meet, despite the Kremlin distancing itself from that suggestion. The largest global review on vaping in young people has found children who do it are more likely to become smokers. Research shows children who vape are 3 times more likely to take up tobacco. Experts have also linked vaping with a greater likelihood of developing health issues, including asthma and bronchitis. The civil service is to develop an apprenticeship scheme in an effort to employ more people from working class backgrounds into government. BBC understands 50 roles will be available in Birmingham and Manchester to try and move jobs outside of London and the South East. And Mo Salah has won a record 3rd PFA Men's Player of the Year award. Egypt International scored 29 goals to win the Premier League title last season. Arsenal's Mariona Caldetti took the women's prize after helping the club win the Women's Champions League. Former England manager Sir Gareth Southgate has told LBC it was a real honour to win the Merit Award for his contribution to the game.
It's lovely to be recognised by players because, especially when you've coached, the thoughts and feelings of the players are really important. So, the PFA is a very important organisation. It always has been and continues to be today.
In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen later at 91.89. It closed up 31 yesterday. The pound buys $1.34 and the euro 15. LBC weather, sunny spells for most today, cloudy across central and eastern areas, feeling cooler, highs of 23 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, Dominic Ellis.
At this event, here's the owner, surgeon, motor manager, and parking worker, and now she and her team are cybersecurity experts too.
Mia, someone tried accessing our system. Phishing scam. I blocked it.
BT Security Awareness Training turns your team into your first line of defense. Quick to set up from just £1.25 per user per month. Cybersecurity is everyone's business. Thankfully, not just Mia's. Search BT Business Cybersecurity. T&Cs apply. Prices exclude VAT at 20%. 12-month minimum term applies. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick.
Morning to you, 3 minutes past 7 the time. Tom Swarbrick in for Nick Ferrari at breakfast here on LBC. Hope you find you very well this Wednesday morning. Coming up,
believes in its traditional British values of the freedom of speech and the right to peaceful protest. As you know,
the leader of the Lib Dems there calling for a review of terrorism laws after the proscription of Palestine Action and the arrest of hundreds of its supporters. The security minister says this group is violent and dangerous. A majority of Labour supporters disagree with him. We'll have a word. Also,
There's no way William and the family will move in there. It will still be Monarchy HQ, but now Charles has already started opening up doors to the public. That will definitely continue.
as Prince William and Kate set up their forever home in Windsor, the future of Buckingham Palace is being called into question. Apparently the royals never liked it anyway. What should be done with it? And
Well, the civil service isn't the place for you. Today they're launching their own apprenticeship scheme, trying to get more working passports into the heart of government. I'm LBC's Natasha Clark with the exclusive details.
plus, dancing banned for police officers at this year's Notting Hill Carnival. The Met says its facial recognition technology is brought in to ward off violence. Is this event safe?
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Very good morning to you this hour. It seems as if those protesters outside the Dell Hotel in Epping have won. Yesterday, dramatically at the High Court, Epping Forest Council won the right to close the hotel to asylum seekers, a decision that throws the government's asylum hotel policy into some degree of chaos and, say the Home Office, risks more violence. Here's how some of those protesters in Epping reacted.
It's not smiling really, because it has said for 5 years this hotel's blind us. The asylum system is broken, and if you don't like the hotel, you should go out and protest. I don't like it. It's not fit for our community, we don't want it, and our community's in danger. We don't want these people in.
The decision at the High Court seems to be based on a number of factors. The fear of local residents about criminality, but primarily It seems to be the fact that these hotels have not followed planning rules to change the nature of their business from being a hotel open to members of the public who pay for it to something else. The judge saying that therefore the owners of this hotel avoided the public scrutiny that would have come with a change in those planning rules, avoided that public scrutiny about what they were up to. They've now been given 24 days to shut the hotel to those asylum seekers. Is this a decision you celebrate? Chris Whitbread is the leader of Epping Forest District Council who led that High Court bid to block asylum seekers from being housed in the Bell Hotel. Thank you for coming on the programme, Mr. Whitbread. Is this a decision that you celebrate?
Thank you. I've never used the word celebrate. It's a decision, it's the right decision, and I'm pleased for the people of Epping. As a council, we've always said the Bell was not suitable for this purpose because it's in close proximity to farming schools, residential properties, and to a residential care home. Just wasn't the right location.
The case seemed to hinge on the use of planning rules or the lack of changing of those planning rules to allow that hotel to become available for asylum seekers. Does this then mean that any hotel doesn't do that, even in the area of Epping, will fall foul to a similar High Court ruling?
I think it will be down to each individual council to assess on planning rules, and that's what we did.
Do you understand the government's concern that this might open the door to every council now taking these hotels to court, or at least the government to court, for their role in it?
I accept their concerns, but I think they should have a better plan, and they should have a plan B in place for this eventuality.
Plan B would be houses of multiple occupants. So you could...
Not necessarily. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right, sir. We're going to have to put them somewhere. If it's not a hotel in Epping, it might be HMOs in Epping. Would you take that to court as well?
I don't think that would be a good decision by the government. I don't know why the government isn't looking at pop-up processing centres along the lines of what was done during the pandemic with the pop-up hospitals. There are other ways of doing this, and one of the interesting things that came up yesterday in court from our representative was that perhaps they could use Crown Estates land in order to do that type of arrangement. There are other ways the government can deal with the processing problem.
What would that look like, potentially, this Crown Estate land? How would that be used?
Well, that's down to the government, but I'm just giving a suggestion there.
The government property, state land, in effect, would be used as a place to house securely people who come over on boats?
Exactly.
Do you worry that there's going to be then more violence, more protests outside the hotels, whether they're in Epping or other places, as part of a way of bringing places?
As I've done from day one, when this all started back in July, I've called for calm and peaceful protest if there has to be a protest. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of this issue we had in Epping, there was a violent protest caused by extremes from both sides of the equation, which was really worrying and really upsetting. I have to say to you, the people of Epping, most of them, have dealt quietly with their concerns, have come to us quietly and said, look, we don't believe the Bell is the right place, we think it should be shut, but they've just gone on with their lives. Unfortunately, the disruption of any kind of protest has affected the town.
So any attempt to house the asylum seekers that are going to be moved from the Bell Hotel in either any other hotel in Epping or in HMOs, you would seek to challenge?
I would rather the government consult us about what they're planning, because the trouble is, the whole Bell issue is the government have failed to consult us. The previous government didn't listen to our concerns. So, for instance, during the pandemic, it was used to house families, young children and families, not single men. The government this time, acting without proper consultation, they instructed us what they were doing, and they didn't think about the local community, and they didn't listen to our concerns. That's why this went so badly wrong for the government. And it's a government that doesn't listen. I've tried to speak to the Home Office officials. They didn't want to listen. All we get is the stop and buy. We will try to end using hotels by the end of this parliament. 4 years is too long in a small town like that.
Very good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the programme. Chris Whitbread is the leader of Epping Forest District Council, leading that High Court bid to block asylum seekers from being housed in that hotel. Kay Marsh is listening to that community engagement to my concern, coordinator coordinator at the Samphire Project, campaign group based in Dover. Thank you for coming on, Kay. Your reaction to that ruling?
Well, it's worrying, isn't it? I mean, you know, if not hotels, then where? The use of hotels has never been ideal, of course, and, you know, I think everybody would like to see the end of the use of hotels, but if not hotels, then where? You know, we've got Napier Barracks as a mass accommodation camp down here in Kent, that's due to close as well. There doesn't seem to be a plan B, there doesn't seem to be any sort of firm where these people are going to go when this place is closed.
Do you understand and accept the reasons why people in Epping protested at the use of this hotel, particularly the type of people that are being housed in it?
I think that, you know, certain individuals cause issues, but it's not representative of the majority of these people. Most people just want to live a quiet life and, you know, make it through the asylum system. I think another worrying aspect of this is, of course, that violent protests did bring this about, and by this ruling, I think other violent protesters might feel emboldened to do the same thing around the country.
Would you be comfortable, happy, to live next to, or to have next to a hotel housing asylum seekers, mainly young men?
I've voluntarily gone into Napier Barracks and worked there and worked with the people there, so, and, you know, I've met hundreds of these people, and as I say, the majority are just normal people that want a nice, quiet life. So, yes, I'm actually safe.
So what is it that people, in your mind, don't understand or fail to see or are told falsely about the people inside those hotels that leads them to either protest violently or to protest peacefully?
The issue has always been the miscommunication and the use of hyperventilating. You know, there are bad people in every community, you know, bad things happen, but it's not representative of all of the people within that community. It's always been an issue.
That being said, I agree with you about that being said, part of the issue with this is that the government don't seem to be consulting with local residents, or even in this case the local council, to say that this is happening. It just happens without explanation. That's not reasonable.
No, I absolutely agree. You know, we've had similar issues down here again with Napier Barracks when it first opened. You know, even support organisations like Samphire weren't made aware. So it's not just, you know, people on the anti side, it's also people on the pro side that aren't being consulted, and that does lead to community tension, and you know, people don't feel like they're being heard.
Do you think then the most reasonable way of solving this, or at least trying to deal with this, is to find a form of accommodation, whatever that may be, that means that people who arrive in it are kept in it and don't have the freedom to walk into a town or walk into wherever?
I think the danger of that becomes, you know, we are then essentially entertaining people that haven't really done anything wrong. We do have detention centres, but, you know, if somebody is innocent and hasn't committed a crime, should they be detained and locked up in such a way, or is that, you know, a breach of human rights? It's certainly a very complex issue, and there doesn't seem to be a suitable plan B.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Kay Marsh, Community Engagement and Migrant Support Coordinator at the Samphire Project campaign group based in Dover. This is opening the floodgates. This is just the beginning. Wait until various councils, particularly I think in Kent, where the boats do arrive, now a reform-led council that have said for some time that they want to find ways of stopping these hotels from opening up. This is just the beginning. The government have got a hell of a problem on their hands. It is going to be up to, I would have thought, some of those hotels to change their planning rules to where they take the ones that they can legitimately house asylum seekers if that's what they want. They put that open to hotels on this reason. And that, I think, is really part of the problem with this, and has always been part of the problem with this. It is a form of insanity for the government not to tell local councils or local people where these asylum seekers are going to be placed. And then when the local council does get in touch and say, hello, might have a bit of an issue here, or can you help us with this? Then stop answer, no, go away, we're closing in 4 years. It is unacceptable. You can't do that to people who might be worried about who is inside those hotels and what they're getting up to. So if it's not a hotel, it's going to have to be a house of multiple occupancy. That is going to come with private difficulties too. Or you have to put people on various forms of state-owned property, crown estate land, or whatever, and you have to make
sweet. Make your everyday taste better with Tesco Finest. Majority of larger stores.
Safe trip begins with TRIP. Take a road trip with your family. Get there safely. Do your trip checks. That's every 2 hours. Skip time pressure when you try to get all the weather. A safe trip begins with TRIP. A safe trip begins with TRIP. 4 trip checks before every journey. National Highways.
Head for Orient Breakfast with Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. This is LBC.
Pretty well set the time. Tom Swarbrick and Nick for Orient Breakfast here on LBC. Hope you find you well this morning. You heard just before the news then, and in the news, I hope that the inflation rate has gone up from 3.6 to 3.8% in the last month. Bank of England talked about it getting to potentially 4% around September. There's a bit of a problem too happening in the gilt markets. The cost of government debt is going up and up and up and up. Massive headwinds for the Chancellor. We'll get into the details of that with Christian May from City AM in a few moments. I'll come to a change in who is going to make up the civil service at this stage of the Treasury are tearing their hair out about the state of the economy. We'll get into the details of that exclusive with Natasha Clark in a few moments. But it is to the events in Epping that we turn. The High Court judgment that sees 28 days given in order to remove the people in the silent hotel. The High Court say it can no longer be used for that purpose. Is this a ruling that you celebrate? Steve's in Guildford. Steve! Immigration detention centres did exist. The problem is, Steve, I suspect part of the problem with this is the numbers are just so vast that it completely floods any accommodation that might exist to hold people or process people or register people or indeed welcome people.
If this been up since 2014, if you built these centres in 2014, 15, 16 and 17, the processing would have been so quick. There would be no backlog because we're actually solving it.
Yeah, Steve is dealing with the world as we wish it to be rather than the world as it is. And the world as it is at the moment is we had 50,000 people come just in these 6 months or in the last 8 months. 50,000.
Because it's been corrected, because they know what they're coming to. And they were coming to the central centre in 2014. In 2015,
working in London outside of London. They want to provide working class school leavers aged 16 and over, actively encouraging people who have not been to university to come on in. It opens today, the start of 2026. You can be doing something like writing research, doing speeches, advising ministers across the Ministry of Justice, the Department for Business and the Cabinet Office too. You'll get a level 3 apprenticeship equivalent to junior levels. You'll also get paid at least 23k starting salary at the same time, which is also good news. Earlier this year, the Cabinet Chief Pam Collins said he wanted to hear more access from across the UK at the heart of government.
They've launched a new apprenticeship scheme to open up the recruitment as well, because I want a civil service that speaks with all the accents of the United Kingdom, and not just one. And we've got an opportunity to do that. Technology partly gives us an opportunity to do that, but I think a new way of thinking as well. So I think this will be good news for, I'm speaking to you from Manchester today, good news for cities like Manchester, Glasgow, Aberdeen, other places around the UK.
I also spoke with the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, last week. Of course, it's A-level results, GCSE results, lots of kids thinking about whether they apply for university or an apprenticeship. She told me that the government should put more emphasis on apprenticeships and skills.
I don't think it's an either or. It's about making sure that young people have got a range of really strong options, but we haven't had enough priority put into skills and skills training. It's why we're turning that around, we're taking skills seriously and we're investing in young people with the ability to do.
Of course, Tom, nothing against your local college education, but of course getting more working class, normalish works, normal works when you're doing a range of things the government own. Increase trust in government, increase the ideas and attract more good people into the heart of civil service. I was digging into the statistics about who works in the civil service. The Institute for Government says more diverse than ever, but there is a lot of work to do. In terms of ethnic minorities, around 16% of the civil service are ethnic minorities. That's compared to around 80% of the population, so they're not doing bad there. The male-female split is also quite good. What is really poor is socioeconomic background. So a majority, around 50% of civil servants come from a higher socioeconomic background, around a third from a low one. And the higher you get, the more likely it's your front line.
That seemed to me to be, when I was working in it obviously, that was the one. There were lots of people who've been for 25, 30 years who'd all come from the same kinds of backgrounds, spoke in the same kind of way, the same kind of language. That was the issue.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, people will have reached university and may have been through school meals, their parents' jobs may have been different. That's going to provide a totally different perspective in the civil service, and that's exactly who the apprenticeship scheme is trying to get on.
Natasha, thank you very much indeed. Natasha Clark, BBC's political editor with The Exclusive. Let's come back to what has happened in Epping, at least in the court, in the High Court. Here's Lee. Tom put those migrants in tents on secure army camps. Simple. Do not put them in hotels or housing. That should be for Brits. This will stop boats, says Lee. Here's another WhatsApp from Charles. Tom, Epping, the problem is the government is not listening. That's when problems happen. 3 migrant hotels in Bournemouth, 116 crimes logs. Next, here's Charles. Rudy's in Bristol. Hi, Rudy.
I'd like to make 3 points. That is very harsh. First of all, she's wrong. They shouldn't be detained, especially if they've got non-identification. B, they are criminals because they've entered the country illegally. So that makes them a criminal. And if they're prepared to do that, they're prepared to go to any of the measures of breaking the law when they are here.
Rudy, it isn't illegal to apply for asylum.
No, but it's illegal to enter a country illegally. And
let me finish this. It isn't illegal to apply for asylum. In order to apply for asylum for the UK, primarily you have to get to the UK. So the only way in which you can be adjudged to have arrived illegally is if your asylum claim fails. And the problem is it just takes too long. Now, the last Conservative government did bring in legislation that said if you arrive by boat, you've entered illegally, whatever your circumstances. That was repealed by Labour.
But I would say, in that, they have no right to seek asylum in this country because they are already in a safe country in France.
Well, then you get,
and if they have family here, like they use that excuse, then they can apply in the normal way.
Well, there is no normal way to apply.
Well, they can do it via, then they should put a portal on the internet where they can submit their application, all their stuff, like you would a claim for benefits or whatever, and they could do it that way.
Well, now you're talking about setting up safe and legal routes. That's what you're talking about.
Why do we need a safe and legal route if they're already in a safe country? and make the claim from that country.
Because if you've got a legitimate claim of asylum in Britain, you'd presumably want to get that tested. If you
But if it's an
family
but Tom, if it's an illegitimate claim, then why are they destroying their documents? If it's legitimate, there's no reason to destroy their documents.
That's why those people who don't have documents into some form of accommodation that is secure, I think.
So therefore, Tom, if they have no documents, we can immediately reject and say, I'm terribly sorry, because you've got no documents, we cannot process your claim.
I would agree with that. I think that's reasonable. Yeah. The problem is, then where do you send them to? Because who are they? That's where you need a returns agreement with France, and that's been part of the problem, as you know, really. Look, I totally... It's unbelievably and unfairly complicated, this. And it pits the rights of individual nations against the rights of various individuals. It's very, very difficult. Obviously, the current status quo cannot continue, is completely mad, and needs to change. And so there will be, I guess, some people relieved about the fact that this one hotel in Epping now cannot be used, and maybe there will be more court cases about hotels in the future that can't be used. The problem is, where do people go? Still got to go somewhere. Rudy, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Coming up.
We do not want to leave this country. We love it here. So any tax advisors we have in the UK and abroad, we are advised we must leave the UK. There's no other choice.
That's non-dom, castle-owning, multi-millionaire Anne Kaplan Mulholland on the news that 60% of millionaires living in Britain now believe that life would be better abroad. Dominic Ellis.
Several councils in England are considering legal action to remove asylum seekers from hotels in their areas. It follows the High Court granting a temporary injunction yesterday blocking migrants from lodging at the Bell Hotel in Epping. Official figures show inflation unexpectedly rose to 3.8% in July, up from 3.6% in the previous month. As for national statistics, as the main driver was a sharp rise in airfares, likely due to the timing of this year's school holidays. The NATO leaders will hold a virtual summit later to discuss security arrangements for Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. President Trump says Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin are still preparing to meet, despite no official confirmation. LBC weather cloudy across the central and eastern areas, sunny spells with patchy cloud elsewhere. Highs of 23 degrees.
This is LBC.
LBC is investigating the impact of over-tourism. Sheila Burgundy was joined by the UK General Manager at Intrepid Travel, Joanna Reeve.
Over-tourism is excess negative impact on destinations, something that negatively impacts the community. Who wants to just pick it up and move it somewhere else. For us, our home is very much around the small intimate groups.
Listen back to the full interview thanks to Intrepid Travel on the LBC app.
You have the freedom to choose your path. So choose where you go with Selector Rainbow for snow, sand, and mud. And choose how you get there. All electric, hybrid, petrol, or 4xe. Because with the Jeep Avenger, it's your ride, your way. Winner of What Car Best Value Small Electric SUV for 2025. Explore more at Motorvote Jeep, Kingsthorpe Road, Northampton. Visit us and start your Jeep adventure today.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Text 84850.
7:34 the time. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC this morning. Here's Robin Church. Tom, if there is no legal way to enter Britain, how do we allow 1.2 million in legally each year? That many, but I take your point. There is, of course, legal migration. There is for work visas, students, family reunion, all that kind of thing. For which you need to apply, for which you need to gain a visa. The problem is, the minute you arrive in Britain and say, hello, asylum, you enter an entirely new system. There is no legal compulsion to claim asylum in the first safe country that you come to, and many people's claims of asylum might indeed be fair. The point is, you've got to get tested, and you've got to get tested quickly. I think you've not got any documentation, don't know where you don't know where you come from. You should be put in a hotel able to wander around local centre. And certainly, local authorities should be told if there's a hotel coming to their Let's get a business update. Christian May is here, editor-in-chief at City AM. There's been some news about inflation this morning, Christian, and it's...
I'm afraid not, no. The consensus, as far as I can ever handle among economists in the city, was that the rate of inflation would climb to It is in fact 3.8%. And one of the biggest drivers for that has been an increase in the cost of food and a huge increase in the prices in the services sector, particularly retail, hospitality, leisure. Let's just backtrack to, say, the last couple of months of the previous government. Inflation had come back down to about 2%. Why then now is it seeming to be climbing up to 4% again, which is twice the official target rate of the Bank of England? The Bank of England, by the way, expecting it to peak at about 4%. Why has that happened? Well, there are international reasons. There are factors around the issues we have with tariffs and trade and uncertainty and price increases, of course, but one of the reasons that cannot be overlooked in this country is that a lot of the costs that have risen are government-imposed costs. I'm talking about increasing costs for businesses in terms of their tax bill, cost of employment, and their overheads. And no surprise, as we've discussed many times before, that's a particular hit on hospitality and retail sectors, which account for a huge amount of employment. So that rate of inflation is now a bit of a headache for the Bank of England. They have another decision to make on whether to cut interest rates again in September. There is now question marks over whether or not that will happen. You don't have to go back very far to find a period where there was a consensus that they will keep cutting their rates. The Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, has been very clear in recent weeks, in fact, that there is uncertainty in this, and we know that members of that committee who voted are pretty split. This fresh data will give them cause for thought. Also, of course, a headache for the Chancellor, who's going to try and explain his state of affairs.
Meanwhile, she looks over at the price of government borrowing and finds that it is, certainly at the 30-year end of government borrowing, going up quite a lot. I mean, that's headroom gone. That's the money down in your back pocket that the government has to spend on stuff. That's gone.
Yes, one of the many reasons why the government is in such a mess when it comes to budget they're going to have to pull together in the coming months is the cost of government borrowing. The UK spends quite eye-watering amount of money servicing the cost of its own borrowing. There's long-standing complicated reasons for that, many of which date back to decisions taken by George Osborne. But it is a huge burden on public finances. The cost of borrowing in the bond markets, which is how the government goes about this activity, on that longer-term horizon, as you put it, has risen higher than the peak of the crisis under Liz Truss, and everybody associates the bond market chaos with the Liz Truss experiment. She now pops up and down on social media 3 or 4 times a day to point out that those prices are higher now than under her supposed prices. There are different reasons for that. It is a real headache for the government. Their fiscal headroom, the figures that they have to maintain a certain allowance in their public finances each year, is getting slimmer and slimmer. And of course it leads to a situation, as we now know, where they're going to have to, depending on which forecaster and economic analysis you want to look at, going to have to raise between 20 and 40 billion pounds in taxes. And that is not easy to do when they've ruled out pulling the big tax levers on VAT, on national insurance, again on income tax. Where are they going to look? Well, they're going to have to get creative.
Well, one of the areas they seem to be getting creative on, which you've Christian, is capital gains tax on the sale of your property. Now, you're charged, I think, capital gains tax on the sale of your second home, if you're looking at that. But this is an idea from Rachel Reeves to hit the owners of high-value properties with capital gains tax when they sell their home.
Yes, this is going to prove exceptionally controversial, not least...
You reckon?
not least among homeowners in some parts of the country, of course, but certainly and predominantly in London in the southeast. You've never had to pay a tax on the gain of value, your capital gain, when you sell your home if it's your only home. As you say that you do have to pay capital gains tax when you sell a second home, it's deemed as an investment asset, fair enough. This could now see a situation where high-rate taxpayers could pay 24% of the value of any gain they make on the increase of value of property when they sell it.
Hang on. Sorry, Chris. 24%?
So if you're a higher-rate taxpayer...